I'm going to stand in front of the answers there. Alright, so why do we, so I wonder what situations do we need to grind a single vision lens?
If it's greater than 2 sil.
Stigmatism greater than 2 sil.
And if it's prism.
If there's prism.
And blank size won't cut out.
And blank size won't cut out.
Yeah.
There's one other reason, which is plus scripts that are probably greater than about plus 3.5 in very small frames. It's not one we've covered yet, but we start to consider it in those situations. And the reason for that is relatively straightforward. Okay, so we'll talk about, so single vision grind, they're the only reasons that we do it.
That's in single vision.
So, in single vision. So grind, single vision. The reason, only reasons to grind. Why grind? Why grind
Special
single
needs.
vision? Greater than 2 sil. Prism, blank size won't cut out. Plus scripts, greater than 3.5, certainly greater than 4 to 5 in a very small frames, which often means kids, but not always. They're the reasons that we grind. Okay? Now, these two, pretty easy. We look on the lens map.
Yeah.
That is going to be on your prescription. Okay, lens mat, prescription, they're straightforward reasons not to do that. Okay? So let's actually deal with blank size and script in very small frames. Okay? We'll deal with those ones now. Alright? So, first of all, have a look at these cutout things. We're going to have a look at this, hopefully you guys can see it as well. So what we've got is the different thicknesses and the different power. So this is playing +3, -5. Let's take over these ones here and have a look at some examples. So here we have a 1.5 index, and you can sort of see how much thicker the lens gets as we move towards +6. So once we start getting over that sort of script, we probably start to think about things. Well, the first thing we want to do in a plus is we want to turn it over and actually use, what we want to use is a new lux. And new lux means basically, you know, that's Hoyer's term, high lux, new lux. That's the term aspheric, non-aspheric. So you'll see on the lens mat, if it says AS or ASPF next to it, that's short for aspheric. AS usually means aspheric. But new lux is a term that Hoyer used to describe aspheric. Versus high lux, which describes spherical. We will go into aspheric, which is important. So the first thing with a plus, if we go with aspheric, you see it makes it flatter and not stick out the frame as much. But this is where grind becomes important. Grind, basically what it does mean is, if they only need a very small diameter of lens, because they've got a children's frame and their eyes are fairly centred and they're in a small diameter, you can actually start to remove that bottom part of the lens by grinding it. In other words, you start it from custom, and therefore they only deal with that, so we get rid of that extra thickness. So that's the only other example where we would probably try and grind a single vision lens, is a moderately high plus, particularly if it's a small frame. That takes a little bit more judgment, and that's not something you'll necessarily become. But these guys will give you a bit of an idea. If you can actually just sort of see what the lens looks like that, and you can actually see that you can put it on the centration chart, and you can sort of go, okay, well the lens is going to cent fairly well. You can actually put their little lens blank over the top of that and sort of think, oh gee, how thick on the edges it's going to be. Now if it turns out that right on the edge the frame actually goes right out to the edge, grinding it's not going to make any difference because you can't remove any more material there, because each time you remove the material as you go back, you make the diameter of the lens smaller. So if the diameter of the lens that you need is close to, within 3 or 4 millimetres of the diameter of the frame when it's the eye is centred and is the widest part of the lens, then there is no advantage in grinding it. So often for a bloke who's quite, might have a +5 script, but say if it's single vision distance and he's got a +5 and he's got a fairly round and even frame and the lens is actually pretty much at the edge on a stock lens anyway, there's going to be no advantage in grinding it. So it's centred on the... because you haven't been able to chop off any more material. However, it's a little tiny frame, you can start removing all of that extra material so that you've only really got so you start being able to basically take that material off and off and off until you end up with just the bit that you need. And obviously that's going to give a thinner result. So often a child with a higher script of a +5 and a small frame, that is, we are going to start looking at probably grinding for some of those things. But if it's a bloke, he's got a big head and he's got +5 and he's got a fairly big frame anyway, you're not going to actually remove much at all by doing that, and so there's no great advantage in grinding. So that's probably the one that's a bit tricky. This is the one that throws people with the fact that, and you'll get those ones come back occasionally and you look at them and think, oh, it's just too thick for a poor child. And in those situations, if we stuff it up, so we don't want to stuff it up because we've obviously quoted them. If they come back, usually we'll see it and someone will bring it to our attention and we'll just go, that's just awful, we can't make that kid wear that, and we just remake it at our charge. And we stuff it up. But you don't want to stuff it up.
It can be helped for sure.
Help, sure. But you certainly don't want to send a kid out there with a pair of glasses that just Coke bottle and stuff. Last thing you need, because typically they're the kids that
cruel.
They're the kids that most need them to wear them, and they're the ones that visually will be impaired lifelong if they don't wear them enough when they're little. And the last thing you want to do is send them out there with a lens that they may feel uncomfortable with and not, and someone might take notice of.
Well, you see more and more, because there's more and more children wearing glasses too, the ones that haven't got it, don't wear them, want to wear them because all their friends wear them.
Yeah, and it's,
but it's still nothing to do with the thickness, but you find they're adapting to, once upon a time you only saw one child in a classroom and it was
statistically,
back then.
Child of class of 30 kids, we know about 30% of kids have got some sort of vision issues and probably about 15% of the kids, so glasses there. There's about 6 of them be probably wearing glasses all the time and another probably 5 or 6 wearing glasses just for reading or close work. Yeah. And statistically you still sort of see that when you look around the classrooms there's still only about half that. So you know that the other half are slipping through still, which not too bad considering that obviously most of the severe ones will get picked up, but still quite a few don't.
All I'm saying is it's not as
but it's not as bad.
Cruel as it used to be.
Yeah, but if you compare that to 30 years ago, it'd be a third again. And it's then a lot of the kids who perhaps parents thought they were wearing glasses had them hidden on the way to school and never wore them because of that. So we certainly don't want to stigmatise the kids with the glasses. So that's the one that can be a little bit tricky. All right. So that's that. So let's talk about aspheric. Okay. So I want to actually stop the video again then.